Hey everyone, Case here, and today we are doing Gear Talk episode 5, which is going to be dedicated to what I wore to Last Stand Volgograd, the Milsim West event that occurred October 2025, and my first 40-hour Milsim. I did a 24-hour one, which was the raid back in January, which was my first Milsim West experience, but this one's actually my first 40-hour, and I can confidently say, yes, I did make it through to the end, which I'm very proud of. Okay, now for those who don't know, the Gear Talk series is a series on the channel where we focus on, as you would expect by the name, the gear and equipment I use and others on the team use for certain events, and as we develop over the years. For this one, it's more dedicated just an event, because sometimes you need to adjust your gear to certain things, whether it's shooting competition, certain types of airsoft games, maybe a hiking and camping trip, etc. Right? Now I got a lot of stuff up here. I also got the rucksack and some rifles hiding over here. Let's just start with some of the clothing I was wearing. Starting out with the boots, these are some Danner boots. I think they are the Danner Tenacious 8-inch Coyote Brown. These are the non-USA versions. It's a little cheaper. I also went for these because I used to wear these a lot many years ago and kind of drifted away, check out the boots. So when my other boots started to get worn down, I wanted to kind of just go back to Danner because I trust them, specifically this exact model. I am not disappointed. They're just as good as I remember them. Yeah, there's like, how many different boot models that guys recommend, whether for military, hiking, shooting, etc. This is just one of the ones I found I liked. There's a bunch of different ones you can choose from. But this is a good option. I would say multi-season boot. They're not a dedicated winter boot. They're not too hot in the summertime, but they keep your feet warm enough and dry in some colder weather. And we did have some cold weather. It wasn't below freezing. We were getting into the low 40s, high 30s, even at an occasion at night at this event. So it was nice to have these boots. And with these boots, I had a much more warm experience than I did with the boots I had for the raid. Though, to be fair, the raid was about 10 degrees colder, and there was snow on the ground. Just wicker t-shirt and compression underpants I had here. Darn tough socks, wool socks I also had. All those are great both for summer and winter time, and this was no different. Green balaclava, pretty thin and breathable. I wore this literally the entire time. I never took it off once we started our Friday night ruck march. Because of that, I never needed a fleece cap. We'll get to that later in the rucksack. But yeah, I just had this. I also use this to cover my mouth. Protect my mouth as a form of mouth protection. We'll talk about later some other things with that, but I had this the whole time and worked good. Condor Rigger's belt I've had for years. I've replaced the Velcro on it because it's gotten worn down. I've used it so much. It does the job. I used to have a leather belt I wear with my normal civilian clothing that I also wear with this kit sometimes. The issue is with that brown leather belt is when I have it with this belt kit, it tends to rub together and make kind of like a loud noise. I mean, would that give your position away? Probably not, but it kind of bugged me. With this more nylon material or poly material that this Rigger's belt is made out of, it doesn't do that as much rubbing against this heavy belt kit on your waistline. What it did do, and it's something I saw when I was using it for extended periods, such as at this event, is this extra ring here as part of the Rigger's belt design. It didn't work well because the way the belt kit works is right on top of my belt line, so that gap right there was a little weird on my left, I guess like 45-degree groinal area. It just felt a little uncomfortable. I may just chop that off because I don't use this for any sort of rigging or rappelling. I just use it as a good duty belt. I may just cut that off to remove that. So that was a good lesson learned from this. Just some surplus flight gloves. These are kind of my go-to because they're cheap, easy, replaceable. The leather on the inside is great for getting friction on when manipulating a firearm, and the outside can be kind of warm in the wintertime if you need it. For most of this event, I did not use these. I usually kept them tucked away inside my dump pouch. During certain portions of the night when I was sleeping or just standing around, it was cold, I would put these on. However, if I was going on to a ruck march at day or night, or it was daytime, we're about to get into a fight, I would not wear these gloves. The weather was great and comfortable. However, it was once you started moving, you started to get pretty hot. and I just didn't really find a need for the gloves in many cases. Alright, for the top, I had an old school multicam blouse. I'm pretty sure it is multicam, not OCP or Scorpion. I had it for quite a while now. Name tape up front, then on the left breast pocket I had my orders and a laminated medical card that you're supposed to have. Either keep them in your breast pocket or one of your shoulder pockets. On my left side I have my Milsim tourniquet. I did not wear body armor, so I only had the one. Keep it unlooped as you were supposed to. Something else to mention is I had it on my left side. Some guys put their tourniquets on the right side. The reason I do that in general, not just for Airsoft, but in general with my actual tourniquet up here, is it has a big bright red tab. So if I'm going to have that exposed, maybe have it on my non-shooting side. So if I'm going to come around as a right-handed shooter and expose myself, maybe not have something big, bright, and red just out there on this camo uniform. It's the same reason why our D13 team patch also has red lettering. I put on the left side with that tourniquet as well. Just put on the offhand if you're going to turn around and aim, for example. On the right side, I just have a small multi-tool hiding in here. That's it. Actually came in useful a couple times, helped some guys out using just for whatever. So it was good to have all that. Here's some pants. These are not the surplus combat pants I normally use. These are actually some Russian-made ones. I'm sure some guys could recognize that logo, but I don't. I bought this from Russia just before the war kicked off as a cheaper alternative to a Crye-style combat pant without having to buy the Crye Precision price, and also trying to avoid China. At the time, it was actually pretty viable. Now, with the war going on, these prices have increased. They're harder to find. So not as viable, but at the time it definitely was, and it's a shame I only got one pair. Should have bought more, but how would I have known? Going from here, I did have the knee pad inserts. They helped out a lot at this event. Sometimes I'll go to events, sometimes it's very rocky soil, I'm just on my knees a lot, and these thinner Crye-style knee pad inserts are just not enough. Maybe you want a little more padding. I found them perfectly adequate for this area. On my left ankle pocket down here, or left calf pocket, I do have a red lens headlamp with some duct tape. So if I need some duct tape, I could use that. A way to tuck that duct tape away, and then the actual red lens itself. I used it a couple times when I was dead at night, and then whenever we're moving around the patrol base, if we needed to see something and we didn't want to focus our night vision, we would use it. On the left cargo pocket was a real tourniquet. I kept them there for a actual real-world emergency. Never had to use it. This front small pocket up front, just above the knee. Inside I had a dead rag and a mouth guard. Now this mouth guard I usually tuck beneath my balaclava virtually every Airsoft game I go to. This game's a little more of an exception. When you are rucking around and you know there's a very low likelihood of being attacked, and if you are, you're probably not the first one who's going to get shot. When you're rucking with a formation or whatnot, it just didn't seem to make sense to leave this on. I was already sweating like crazy, trying to get some air going up these hills, so I just tucked that away. In the end, I never really needed it. Even when we were fighting, the distance engagements were usually pretty far. Maybe at night you would get within 150 feet or so, but really most of the time we were fighting each other right at 180, 200 plus feet away. I took the risk. I had the balaclava covering my mouth, and it was good enough. Most games I will not do that. I'll absolutely mandate to wear this, but at this time it wasn't as big of a deal. Dead rag, never had to use it because of the only times I really needed one was at night, and then I would just use the red lens. Dead rag I did not need, though I'm glad I did bring it. I think it's good to have those. So no regrets keeping those on there. On this other side, the right side, this front pocket above the knee, I had some emergency ear protection. Most of my ear protection is the pelletors on my helmet, but if there's ever a chance someone's blasting off blanks real close to me, I did not have a helmet on me, always had these on me. I never had a need to. However, there also wasn't too many blank fires out here at this event, but I don't regret not bringing that. I would probably keep that for the long term, just to be safe. My right cargo pocket, I had my notebook with pen, pencil, paper, some riding products. I was just an average Joe rifleman for this. I was not a team leader, I was not a squad leader or anything like that. So I've never really needed this. I usually keep this on me. I think in the future a pen, pencil, paper is mandatory red line item for your packing list per the task op, if I recall. How I didn't really have a use for it. If I really needed to write something down, I had my phone on me. Though that's not a realistically tactical solution, what I'll probably do in the future to save some weight is get the notebook and some writing material out of here and then just leave it in the rucksack, and then it would save me some weight on this. So that is something I do regret bringing that I just really didn't need. Okay, so for rifles, so neither of these guns I've done a review on the channel yet. This is a Avalon, I forgot what model it is. This used to be my primary for about a year to year and a half. Then it became a backup gun. Now, unlike the Raid, I made the decision to not bring a spare rifle to save weight. I am glad I did that because the ruck was getting pretty heavy going up these hills. But that comes with a risk. This EMG Daniel Defense right here is my primary. It performed quite good. Thank goodness I haven't had any issues yet with it. I've also had it for like a year, so I would hope it wouldn't. The problem is if you run the risk without having a spare rifle out there, you are pretty hosed. Enjoy being a medic or tossing pyro, and that's it. I do not want to play like that. I want to actually shoot stuff at the Airsoft game with my Airsoft gun. But I also didn't want to ruck out there that spare rifle, so I took the risk. In the future, I don't know if I'm going to maintain that. But at least for this one, I don't regret it, and it did work out well. Performed very well as well. The engagements we were dealing with out there a lot of times was 200 and sometimes even 300 feet out. Can these airsoft guns make it out to like 100 yards, 200 feet? Kind of. They can get really close, actually. You're going to be arching the BBs, but with a lot of open space we had, engagements were pretty far. And much like if you've watched the channel prior, the Iron Fury 2 event by Third Coast Airsoft, if you actually practice with these guns, you will be surprised how far you can get with them sometimes. But again, you are stretching it. With that said, perform well. The reason I bring up the Avalon is because I left it in the car as a backup rifle in case something happened before we stepped off. And sure enough, one of our squad members had an issue with a gun, so he ended up rocking this spare rifle for his gun the whole event. So that's a good data point for this as we get closer to a review for this. Around the 2.5 to 3 year mark, I'm going to do a review on it for its long-term use, but I was very pleased to see that both of my rifles did survive a 40-hour Milsim West event. Okay, moving on to helmet. This is a Protection Group Denmark level 3A ballistic helmet. One of the first videos I ever did on the channel was reviewing this helmet. Still going strong. I had a cheap Chinese fast helmet cover on it that I then cut strips on to make the helmet scrim. And I learned my lesson from prior events. On this right side, you see I have a helmet cam here. I trimmed away some of the helmet scrim and practiced with it to make sure it did not interfere, so you do not have helmet scrim covering up the camera as much in comparison to past events. I did that, thank goodness. The back I have is a cheap counterweight pouch that I actually use to hold a X-Fog that I then weave through the front and get the tubes up here for the eye protection. Some Peltor Comtac 3s, I think, I've had for many years now. I got duct tape on one side. They are holding on for dear life. They're in need of being replaced. However, they did their job for this event. I originally was not planning on using comms. I'll talk about that later, but I did. And I still had the NATO plug there. So that all worked out well enough. What's really important with this helmet as well, whether it's ballistic or not, is this great adjustment strap here and chin strap system, helmet system on it, which helps a lot when securing it to your head, both to get a good section of the ear pro around your ears, but also when you are using it with night vision, which I did use. I rented a PVS 14 white phosphor, I think it was Gen 3. With events like this, it's almost mandatory. I'll talk about it more in another video, but it just helped a lot being able to have that. I'm glad the opportunity is there to rent one. Don't regret that, that's for sure. But that's why you don't see it here. But I did use one for the nighttime. It would be up here. For the daytime, I had the GoPro on the GoPro mount. if you notice, I have the helmet cam and GoPro here. This is more one of the isms of doing content creation. I definitely wanted to get different camera angles and get as much footage I could from an event like this. So what I usually did is have the helmet cam on the side here, where I would get B-roll footage and certain transition shots. And then when we started to get closer, say creeping toward an enemy position or the firefight started to get more intense, I would turn this helmet cam off and go to the better POV of the GoPro, and that would help save the GoPro battery for those more intense moments. So that helped me out a lot. Do you need to do that if you want to do content creation? No. And of course, if you don't care at all, you don't need any of that at all, which would save you a ton of weight. And then my iPro I had here as well. So if you want to see a full review of this belt kit, check out my annual LBE loadout review I recently did for the 2024 season, though it came out in 2025, and some of the prior gear talks. You get to see some of my development of this over time. I'm not going into too much detail on what these pouches are, and so much as what's in them. So starting at the front, what you notice I am lacking is a knife here. I just kept the scabbard there because I don't really need a knife. Milsim Web's actually pretty open to you carrying certain blades for fieldcraft purposes, but I just didn't really have a need for it, so I left it at home to save some weight. Pace beads, this is Milsim West, like the one Airsoft game where you would actually maybe need these. I didn't really need it. I wasn't a navigator for anyone at all. I didn't use a compass or anything. I didn't even pack a compass, but I had it on the kit, so I left it there. Push to talk. So push to talk, and I'm going to go ahead and talk about my radio. So I originally left this radio in my car. I didn't even charge the extended battery on it for several weeks now because for me, I said, well, listen, I'm just a rifleman. It'll save me some weight. I don't even know who I'm going to be paired with, both in terms of platoon and squad. So screw it. I'm just going to leave it in my car. But if there's an emergency, I can pull it out before we SP from the parking lot. Sure enough, I actually started to get my squad mates, and they said, hey, actually, we do have a squad frequency. Let's go ahead and use those. So I went back to the car, pulled this out, plugged it in. To my surprise, this extended battery on this Baofeng did not last the whole event, but even now, it is still showing all 3 bars on it. So that's a real testament to this extended battery's battery life. I'm very pleased with that. And battery issues were not a problem. I did not bring the spare battery for it. I expected to die in the last day or so. It didn't. So that was really impressive. I like that. The push to talk. So this is a Disco 32 push to talk for the Baofeng to NATO conversion, because buying a cheap version of this, plugging it into a Chinese Baofeng and then into a actual US Peltor headset doesn't work very well for you. I can't really explain the science behind it, but it just doesn't work very well. So you do need something a little nicer. This push to talk, I have 2 of them. This one and the other one have both been through a lot over the years, and it's starting to show. We actually had a couple of comms issues with me where I could hear my other squad mates, but they could not hear me respond. And part of that because is these 2 prongs down here can get pretty fragile over time and slightly bend or just become loose, and it's starting to impact my comms. So good chance I'll be replacing this soon, but it'll probably be with just another one. These have lasted me 4 years, I think, in sub-freezing temperatures up in Alaska, to all these airsoft games you guys see me go to hiking trips, to shooting competitions. So you know what? It's normal wear and tear. They've been doing good, but some of its flaws were starting to show at this event. Now what you see up here are 4 grenade pouches. Yes, I had 4 grenades, plus in this magazine pouch, I had 2 more grenades. So I was rocking 6 EG-67 grenades on me at any time. I only really used them at the very end, the final fight. The woodland area, because the distance, engagement distance was usually pretty far, it was kind of hard to toss grenades at each other. And at night, it was about a 50-50 shot if I was in a position to even do so, and I never really did. It was only that final day where the engagement distance get really close in the daytime and in an open enough area where I could toss it without the tree branches getting the grenade caught on it and bouncing back at us. Some people were more bold and better at grenade tosses than I was, but I refrained a little bit. So I only tossed like 3 of the 6. But I still had 3 on me by the end of the game, plus whatever I still had in the rucksack, which we'll get to later. Also in this pouch, since I was already there, I did have a small speed loader, just a small basic one, just in case the team Odin speed loader ever went out or I was separated from them. I never really had a need for it because one of our squad members did bring an Odin out there, and we just shared that for our squad ammo resupply. Going on this side, I had 6+1 magazines. These magazines, so 4 of the 6 are these 250 rounder mid caps, and then 2 of them are these spare like 120, 150 rounder mid caps. So I bought these multicam magazines. I think the Hex Mag style design. I bought this because I wanted a multicam magazine. I thought it was cool. They already had them painted multicam, and then I added my own little paint job on top of it. I didn't really care about it at the time, about the 250 round BBs. What I found is, in time, both at other Airsoft games and with the Milsim West, is it's a little gamey loading these up all the way to 250, especially at an event where they're issuing ammo and they want you to be limited on ammo. It just, I don't know, it just didn't feel right. I think what I'm going to do is just keep these magazines, still use them, but when they finally die on me, I'm going to replace them with a mid-cap magazine that actually goes to like 120, 150, a more normal BB amount for a mid-cap, something that's not as gaming, you know what I mean? In addition, until then, I could also just half-load these if I want, which I may start doing for games like this. But the ammo situation wasn't too bad for us. There's some reasons for that, but overall, I was walking around with like 7 fully loaded mags at multiple points. I was eating real good, and I was very happy with that. But also, it kind of partially invalidates, you know, one of the mechanics in Milsim West is the BB limitation. So, again, is what it is on that. I definitely want to carry a full combat load when I can, but 250 seems a bit much. Okay, on the side here is a smoke grenade pouch with 2 medium-sized Enola Gay smoke grenades. I had 4 of these, 2 on me, 2 in the rucksack. I only used 1, so that was that. For the dump pouch down here, I would put my gloves in there, and then sometimes medic water if I was the squad CLS. I could fit like 3 bottles in there if I had to. So I would do that sometimes. First liter of water in a canteen. That was good. And then behind it, tucked away, were some batteries. I usually keep this in another pouch I'm going to get to, but because that MVG pouch was full of a night vision device, I cross-loaded the batteries behind this canteen. Had about 8 AAAs, 1 CR123, and 1 lithium AA. I used 2 of the lithium AAAs to replace the batteries in my Peltors, and then the CR123s I gave to one of our team members as they needed it to power their thermals, and as a squad we really wanted to make sure those thermals stayed active, for sure. IFAC, never had to use it. This is for real world medical emergencies. I'm not going to open it up because I never had to use it. Second canteen with a canteen cup. Canteen cup's there just to help pull it in and out. I talked about it in other videos. Just another canteen, so that was good. Okay, so for this pouch, there's a zipper in the back. If you open it up the back, I had 4 of these meat sticks as just a little snack to have from away from the rucksack. As you see, I only have 1 left. I ate through quite a few. And then a small spare rifle battery. Open this up. Inside was a Coyote Brown, I think a Marine Corps surplus, MVG insert. So I've shoved in here. It's a little snug, but I made it fit. And when I got the MVG rental, the PVS 14 plus the MVG recorder I had, the J-arm and Rhino mount fit perfectly in here with the hardware on top, and I could close it. And due to it both being expensive, a rental, and because I had the pouch dedicated to it, day and night, even if it wasn't on my helmet, the MVG device stayed here on my kit. I rolled around a lot, went prone, was on my side a lot, pulling security, laying low, dead sometimes, and the MVG device was still perfectly safe with that padded insert in there. So that was good to see. And then on this side, with this other magazine pouch, I had a power bank with 2 different connector cords for the different type of equipment I needed to use. Something I had an issue with during the raid I talked about in the AR video was sometimes the cords didn't work with certain equipment that I was charging with. I tested all that prior to make sure it didn't happen again. and this worked really well. This power bank, because it actually had the cords that correctly charged the equipment, really was a lifesaver, to the point that as we get to the rucksack, there's actually a lot of weight I could have cut out that I didn't need. 3 spare GoPro batteries, so these were just there on my kit, so if I'm away from the rucksack and I want to get some action shots and something happened to the GoPro, I had some spare batteries. I have more in the rucksack, but just 3 would definitely hold me over for multiple hours if I was away from the rucksack, if things were really warranted. I could have probably reduced that to just 2 because of the helmet cam I had plus the power bank, but nevertheless, it was something I just had on my kit instead of the rucksack. And then also there was just enough space in here to put my cell phone. I would sometimes take notes, particularly for like the content creation side, taking notes of like what was happening and whatnot to help me later. Sometimes for tactical use. And then I had a couple of snapshots of the AO and like just like a basic map, just to kind of give me a basic orientation. Again, I wasn't the one doing the lane navigation, but it just helped for your situation. All right, here is the Alice rucksack I used for this event. Again, go check out my prior videos on some of the modifications I have done on this rucksack, because I have sewn some stuff, some extra pouches on it, and some extra attachments. With that said, in terms of the stuff on it, so starting on this side sustainment pouch, the only thing in here I have right now are my X-Fogs, and then on top of it, during the nighttime portion, when I have my night vision on, I would stick my GoPro and GoPro mount on top of here as well. Now, here is an interesting point. So I have 4 X-Fogs in here, plus a 5th one on my helmet. Why? Okay, so for me, it doesn't matter how much weight I lose, how good the weather is. If I am outside with full steel iPro, I am going to fog, and X-Fog has been the only avenue that has been able to mitigate it in any successful way in my entire time of doing airsoft. I've tried wipes, creams, anything to smear on those lenses, special iPro, built-in fans with the iPro. It's just never enough. The only one that's been good enough to me is X-Fog, so I've really invested more into that. All 5 of the X-Fog battery packs I have are all the older X-Fog packs. As of now, they've made a slightly better version with faster charging times. They last a little longer. They might even be a little more powerful as well. Just a net upgrade. When these completely die on me, I'll probably invest in those, which is important because not all of these X-Fogs are built the same. I purchased 2 or 3 of these brand new on my own, but a lot of these I'll also snag really cheap from people selling them used at trade-ins or whatnot. And it's always good just to have a spare X-Fog. One's great, but after 5 to 7 hours, they're going to die on you, and especially down here in the Carolinas, the humidity and heat, you definitely want to have spares, because if something would have happened to it, you're going to be hosed. I went overkill and have 5, because again, opportunities arose. And with this being my first 40-hour event, I didn't know how often I would need to have the X-Fog working to make sure my iPro wasn't fogging, how much I would care. For example, if I was, say, digging a fighting position and others are pulling security, I'm going to have plenty of warning beforehand that we're going to get attacked. So maybe save the X-Fog, not use it, and just take the foggy goggles as I dig and see the pit 5 feet in front of me. Likewise, if we are about to go into have an engagement, you definitely want to have the X-Fog running, because I don't want to fog during that. Now, the catch of this that I found is the last time I went for the raid, a lot of these X-Fogs weren't working, and part of that was that cord issue I mentioned earlier with the power bank. I think the cold also killed a lot of them too. But what I also started to find is some of these second-hand ones are not that great, probably why I got them so cheap. For example, one of them was like just, I don't know if the battery's just really shot in it, but before we even stepped off for the initial Friday night ruck march, it was already kind of giving me a problem and not really working, so I immediately replaced it with another one. The other one was actually pretty weak, even at its highest setting, which is weird. And then a third one worked fine, but it's super loud. And having that on your helmet was kind of weird, because even guys next to you could kind of hear it just, you know. So really, I only had 2 X-Fogs on here that were really solid. With that said, what does that mean in the future? What that means in the future is to save some weight. My OCD hindquarters, so desperate for an X-Fog, is probably going to keep 3 of them on me for a future event. One good one on my helmet, one good I can trade out, and the third one as a oh shit moment. With that said, I really only need 2 because the power bank was doing such a good job. I was able in downtime to cross-load those and just have them on that charger when we're at the patrol base, so that if one were to completely die out on me, I would have another one fully charged, ready to go. So in the future, there's 2 easy I could get rid of to save some weight. In reality, I could probably narrow it down to 2, but I'm definitely a stickler for the XFOG system and want to have at least some of them on me. Going to this sustainment pouch up here, I had spare iPro. Both this iPro and the other one are both clear lens. Unfortunately, something we saw within our squad was guys going to a Milsim West event and forgetting that they only had tinted glasses despite spending multiple nights out there. Thankfully, one of them reached out to me prior and said, "Hey, night's approaching, can I borrow some clear lens iPro?" I said, "Sure, no problem." And I had the spare to do so. Some guys will have spares that are like basic shooting glasses, so that when they're sleeping at night, they have something a little more comfortable that's still within the Milsim West compliance. For me, I didn't want to take the chance. You only get 2 eyes, so I used both of my good iPro with the insert and XFOG seals, the gaskets on the side. It didn't really bother me sleeping with them. I mean, you're going to be tired enough, you're going to sleep through it, it's not a big deal. So yes, I actually did have a use for this. I am glad I brought it. In addition, this one and the other equivalent on the other side was essentially open space in my rucksack. So when we were cross-loading medical water on movements, this would be a good place to store a couple of the bottles. I think at times we had upwards, I think in the beginning we had like 8, 9 bottles of water. Our CLS, which was me in the beginning, had 2 or 3 in my dump pouch, and then 1 or 2 in the rucksack, and then we gave 1 bottle to each member of the squad to help cross-load some of that weight. Wet weather top. Thankfully did not have to use it. Weather was fantastic. In a pinch, this would also become an outer layer for cold weather gear. Wasn't that cold for me with the other equipment I had. So not needed, but mandatory item, so you have to bring it anyway. Okay, main sustainment pouch in the middle. Rain poncho. Mandatory item, I think. I could be wrong on that. I bring it anyway because, one, it serves as wet weather gear, both for your rucksack and a shelter at the beginning of the rain. For me, I did not bring a sleeping pad. I left it in the car. I brought it just in case someone was like really nudging me to say, "Hey, your first 40-hour event, you should probably bring one." But ultimately I decided not to due to weight, though bulk's more important with this. This isn't really that heavy, but bulk, I didn't want to pack it. For this weather, again, because it wasn't that cold to me, we didn't have any rain. It was real easy in this pine strawed AO to dig a little bit, do what fighting positions you could, throw a layer of pine straw on top of it to insulate you from the cold, throw the rain poncho on the ground, and then just sleep in your sleeping system. It was perfectly fine with me. I slept pretty decent, actually. Some people did not. They also sometimes did not bring a sleeping system. They bought like a blanket or something. Some brought sleeping pads, some didn't. For me, I was perfectly fine with that one. Gaiters, again, very dry weather. Even in the mornings, the humidity wasn't bad. There wasn't really much morning dew. So I never really had a use for them. Would I bring them again? Yeah, I actually would, depending on the weather. So I don't regret it, but I never had a use for them. About 10 feet of paracord and 4 stakes in case there's no sticks around. Again, didn't have a need for it. This is really for the rain poncho, turning into a shelter. But if the weather was not as great, I definitely would have needed it, so no regrets bringing that. Other sustainment pouch up here. So here I got 8 lithium AAAs, 1 lithium AA, and then 3 CR123s. For the event, I actually had 2. I put a third in here already as a big AR comment from it because yes, some of our equipment do use CR123s. The AAAs are mainly for the pelt doors because my pelt doors tend to chew through AAAs pretty fast. But the CR123s really meant a lot because one of our guys had a thermal and he only brought so many CR123s, and his thermal could actually take interchangeable CR123s. Batteries. There was other guy on our team who had a 18650 battery. I'll talk to you in a minute. And then a lot of the people had like proprietary batteries that you had to charge internally. And that was a real bane out there with thermals. I talked about it in the AR portion, but thermal logistics was an interesting aspect to, I guess, the newly evolving tactical world, both in airsoft and real steel. And that was kind of interesting to see play out in terms of a long-term, sustainment standpoint. So after about midway through the event, all of us were tossing our CR123s at that one squad member to ensure he stayed in the fight because his thermals were that valuable. And that's why I put a third one in here now. But again, I had 2 in the beginning, and I did shoot through 2 of the lithium AAAs. If I really wanted to save weight just for this event, because this rucksack is more than just for this event, but you do want to pack for specific events, I could probably have cut these batteries in half in terms of the quantity to save some weight. Okay, so here are all my other GoPro batteries. So again, this is a content creation thing. I did not want to miss out on recording any of the action. To my surprise, due to me using the NVG recorder at night, I had the scope cam on the gun, I had the helmet cam, and that helmet cam I was charging with the battery pack when I wasn't using it. And then the spare GoPro batteries I had on my belt kit, I really never even cracked these guys open. Usually my GoPro is my primary form of recording for events, so I usually go through these batteries a lot, so I went really over the top. I would say maybe like 2 of these batteries I would keep just from a paranoid standpoint, and all the rest of these I didn't really need. So in the future I'm probably not going to pack those. So that was an interesting point. Here's a spare GoPro arm. So I only brought one protection case for the GoPro. I have seen them shattered before by BBs. I take the chance. However, if your mount breaks, you're kind of hosed on using that GoPro to record stuff. This is again a content creation thing. Super lightweight. I just brought an extra just to be safe. Okay, so I got 2 more batteries here. So that means I had 2 of these 3000 7.4 batteries for my gun, and I had 2 of these smaller 1100 milliamp ones, which meant 4 batteries total. Now, why did I bring 4 batteries? Because I have 4 batteries, and I had no idea what to expect for a 40-hour event. The weather did get cold, but it was always above freezing. Freezing temperatures obviously kill batteries some more, even the lithium ones you gotta be careful with. At the end of the day, I never had a battery die on me. However, midway through, I did switch the 3000 milliamp one out of the gun with the other one. So in the future, what I'm going to do is not bring that 4th one, but my OCD, especially if I'm only bringing 1 rifle, I am going to bring 3. The idea being, I will have the 1 in the gun, the 1 in the rucksack, and 1 in the gear. In reality, if you have the 3000 milliamp one for like a rifleman, you really only need 2 batteries, a primary and a secondary. I'm just a weirdo, so feel free to ignore that. But at least 1 battery I'm going to not bring next time to save some weight. Spare 18650 batteries. These are for my helmet cam. Again, the power bank worked really well. So well that I never even had to use these. So I'm not going to bring these ever again. The power bank did its job. Spare red lens. Never had a use for it, but I brought it anyway. I don't regret not bringing it. I don't regret bringing it, even though I didn't use it, because that's just one of the things you just want to have a contingency for. You don't want a white light in the middle of the forest, and NVGs aren't the best at doing some more fine-tuning stuff. So it's good to have. I don't regret it. And then on the side here, I had my E-tool. Due to the soil, the way it was, you got about 1 inch or 2 of layers of pine straw you can move out of the way, and then maybe another 1 inch or 2 of dirt in most areas before the tree roots and rocks got so thick that an E-tool really wasn't going to get you far. So fighting positions were very shallow at this AO most of the time. So for me, I did use it, but it wasn't too much digging. But E-tools are encouraged. I can't remember if it's a mandatory item or not, but very encouraged to bring, and I don't regret that. And the magazine pouches up here, 2 to 3 were empty. The middle one, I kept those 2 spare smoke grenades. Again, I used 1, so I still have 1 in here. No regrets there. No regrets there, though I am surprised how little I did use them. Okay, so this is the clothing bag. Silk top. I absolutely use this at night when we were not rucking. If I had time and I knew we were going to move out and have an engagement, I would take this off as well. But hanging around the patrol base, pulling security at night, it did get cool enough to where I would toss this over my t-shirt and underneath my blouse. And outside the sleeping system and those gloves occasionally, that was it. I didn't need really anything else in terms of cold weather gear. I'm a little more resistant to cold than others. Others were not having as great of a time, but you know, is what it is. One pair of stinky socks. I had brought 4 pairs of socks, 3 in here, which is mandatory from Milsim West, plus the 4th I was wearing. I think I changed out to my 3rd pair, I think. So about every, you know, anytime the sun came up, I was changing them out. Spare t-shirt. For just cause I had it, I did exchange my t-shirts about around the 50% mark. Did I really need to bring that t-shirt for this event? Not really. Silk bottoms, did not have a need for it. If I had known the weather was the way it was, I probably would not have brought it. However, this is a mandatory item as part of your cold weather gear at this time of the year. Maybe in the summertime I could have gotten away with it, but for Milsim West inspection, or for your layout inspection, this is mandatory, so I don't have a choice there. More socks. Spare underwear. Didn't have to use it. Always good to have in case of emergency, so no regrets there. Okay, so waffle top and bottom. Again, this is a mandatory red line item. I didn't use them. If I had my way, I wouldn't have brought them in this weather. If it went below freezing, maybe there's an argument, but again, I had a sleeping system, so again, if I had my way, I wouldn't have brought these. More socks. And a fleece cap. Fleece cap that I did not need because I used a balaclava. Again, it wasn't cold enough. I think I would have gotten away not bringing this per the red line items. I don't think they would have cared, so that is something I would not have brought. And spare gloves. So spare gloves, I usually bring a spare pair of these gloves if it's cold enough. This turned out to be actually really good weather, so because of that, I would not have brought those if I had known. If it was colder, say the raid in January, I absolutely would have. But for this one, I wouldn't have. I'm going to open this one up inside the admin pouch. 2 trash bags. One of them we did end up using as a squad trash bag, just to retain trash. And then I had some ramrods for a cleaning kit. Really, that was there in case there was ever a maintenance issue with one of the guns, the baby stuck or something. Didn't have to use it, don't regret bringing it. Sewing kit. I only brought my blouse and combat pants, as you saw in that packing list. So if something would have happened, a sewing kit's good. This is pretty lightweight. I never had a use for it. However, we actually did have a squad member whose pants got ripped. The problem is no one knew I had this on me, and they didn't bother to tell me until the next morning when we didn't have time to repair the pants. So he froze his hindquarters off that night with a busted pair of pants that could have been fixed if we had communicated better. So no regrets bringing that, and it's good that at least someone in your squad does bring something like that. Ziploc bag of spare grenades. I did not use much pyro for this event, but it's a Milsim West event. You have to bring everything to carry out, and if your gun went down, if you didn't have a spare, it's one of your only other offensive options you had, unless someone else would give you a gun. So I packed pretty high with frags. I think I walked out there with 12 frags, 6 on my kit, 6 in the rucksack. I gave a couple out to some guys for the final fight, but technically no regrets there, though I didn't really use them. Going into food. So I carried, let's see here, 6 meat sticks, plus the 4 on my kit means I had 10 meat sticks on me, 4 MRE entrees, and then 2 of those small, like, you know those like tuna packages you can get? I had the chicken version. I like the chicken over the tuna. I had 2 of those. In this 40-hour event, I ate 2 MRE entrees, 5 of the meat sticks, and then the 2 chicken packages. And most of that was really Saturday evening once we really settled down and the hunger started to kick in. My appetite usually isn't that big during events like this. So, I mean, if I really wanted to nickel and dime it, I could have gone without 2 more entrees, could have gone with less meat sticks. But, the food, it varies a lot. It depends how much you're moving. So I don't really regret that too much. I could have been maxed a little more, but that's fine. And then here's my eating utensil and toothbrush on the same thing. All right, sleeping system. So, unlike the raid where there was snow on the ground and my dumb hindquarters decided to only bring a whoopee and a bivy cover and froze my hindquarters off, I said I was going to live a little more comfortably. I did the bivy cover and a summer sleeping bag. Again, no sleeping pad. Weather was good and over 32 degrees, so over freezing. I slept really well. I thought I was quite comfortable. I used my belt kit as a pillow. And I got between 3 to 4 hours of sleep each night, which I thought was really good for that event. Others were not so comfortable. Is there extra bulk and weight in this in comparison to a whoopee and a bivy cover that I could have just toughened up? Maybe. I did have the waffle tops and stuff I could have just layered on and just went inside the bivy cover. But I wanted to be a little more comfortable after what I experienced at the raid. So I took the weight and I was happy with that. Okay, opening up the radio pouch. 2-liter water, canteen, and then a ice plate. So this ice plate is 1.5 liters. So I leave this ice plate in here as a pseudo camelback, except unlike a camelback bladder where there's a chance it could pop under the weight of everything inside that rucksack. Ice plate does a lot better, which brings up the point, if you look at the canteen, the ice plate, and the 2 liters of water on my belt kit, I walked out there with 5.5 liters of water. Now, the mandatory minimum you need is 3 liters per Milsim West TASCOP. However, I also use this rucksack for different things. So this is one of those things where I purposely brought a little extra water just to see what would happen. Again, pretty fair weather. If it was hotter weather, this might be a different story. But I end up using around 30 liters of water. Almost like Milsim West knows what they're doing, right? Which meant I had 2.5 liters left. Now, the catch to that is there was actually a water truck that would periodically follow the patrol bases throughout the event, which meant you could really walk out there, shoot with like 2 liters of water if you wanted to, and just keep getting resupplied, and you would probably be fine. It would be tight, but it would be fine for the most part. Of course, 3 liters is what you actually have to carry. So what would I recommend? I would say follow the TASCOP at 3 liters if you want to use the water buffalo that's there. For me, this is what I pack in my rucksack outside of these events for other uses. And I was just curious to see how much water I would go through in roughly a 3-day period. This was a 40-hour event. And I would say, I purposely tried to avoid using the water buffalo just to see how much water I would consume. Of course, I was drinking the medic water as well whenever I died. So, I mean, I was definitely drinking fluids. I probably drank 5 or 6 medic waters throughout that weekend as well. So in terms of water consumption, just in general, I think this is actually 5.5 is a pretty decent number, though on the low side. If I was actually using this for a more tactical purpose, I would have a water filter and I would have a water filter with me that you could pump into a creek, which are where a lot of water sources out there on the field. Obviously, you're not going to do that for an airsoft game. So for me, at the minimum, do the 3 liters if you really want to save weight. For me, in my weird OCD, what I would probably do is replace this with just a third canteen, which means I'm down a liter, but that's a liter of weight that I could be saving. So ultimately, I'm going to replace that and leave that there. So that is something, even in my weird OCD, with my own philosophy of use, that is something I'm going to be moving away from. And then hygiene kit, I had a towel, some paper towels, and some wet wipes. Thankfully, avoided needing to take a dump out there, though there were a lot of porta-johns, so that if we had to, it was a much more comfortable experience than maybe some prior games. Okay, so I tend to pack a little heavier for events like this, both out of a desire to be a little more over-prepared than under-prepared. I do the content creation side with you guys, so of course there's extra weight there. But ultimately, as you can see, there were a couple of easy items I could have easily removed. I mean, all this alone is 1.5 pounds. That would have helped a lot. And then I could have also bring it down even more if I want. Probably about another 2 pounds worth of all the other gear I could have removed. That weren't, mandatory red line items. So with that said, there's definitely a lot of good lessons there. Anything outside of the packing list of this video, I would say it was a little weird wearing everything with the rucksack. So my Alice rucksack sits a little high with the belt kit on. The problem is with the belt kit, I'm not the tallest guy. So if I want to lower the belt kit to where the Alice rucksack isn't hindered by the belt kit at all, that belt kit's going to be pretty low around my waist, hitting my butt and my thighs on the front, which is going to make it even harder to move forward in comparison to, say, a kit like a chest rig where it's more on your torso, where you have more space for your legs to move. I also have shorter legs, so I need that space. Kind of the trade-off of someone of my height with gear that bulky, but it does allow you to carry a lot. The other issue with that is because it was sitting just a little higher, it meant when I was wearing the helmet, I could only look up so much, but I could turn perfectly fine. And I'm using a more high-cut helmet, so that also helps a lot. If I had, say, a standard ACH or maybe even a steel pot helmet or something like some older model, it would not be as comfortable experience being able to maneuver with that rucksack on. Overall, I mean, it is what it is with the height thing. There's always going to be a trade-off if you want to carry certain stuff. But yeah, I would say that was that. Now as for the equipment I did use and need and the gear itself, like the tactical gear side, everything performed pretty well, all things considered. Yeah, the comms equipment's getting old. I've been aware of that for a while. I need to invest more into that. But outside of that, I thought it went pretty well. A couple of people complimented the helmet scrim and the belt kit. They thought it was cool. But yeah, overall I thought it was good. I think a majority of people out there were rocking chest rigs, and for good reason. And then there were also a couple of heroes out there doing plate carriers. The ones with the plate carriers without the body armor, a little more questionable. But we made it work with them. They were able to survive the rucks too. So that was that. Overall, awesome experience. Of course, you're going to be seeing more content on the channel from that event. But yeah, there was a lot of good lessons learned from it, some things I can cut the weight on, and yeah, that's almost like a huge portion of why I go to these events. So hope you guys learned something from this. Hopefully I will see you guys out in the field, both at Milsim West and some other fields. So thank you guys for watching. See you around next time. If you have any questions or anything you want to drop in the comments, go ahead. Thanks guys. God bless.